Good evening. I'm Gordon Wilkins, the Robert M. Walker Associate Curator of American Art here at the Addison Gallery. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome all of you, those of you who have joined us here in person in Andover, and the many more joining us from across the country, and actually internationally. There's someone from Canada on this Zoom, via Zoom, and we're very pleased to welcome you here to the Addison for Winslow Homer, the man behind the art, presented by our guest and friend, William R. Cross. The Addison is proud to be the steward of one of the most significant institutional collections of Homer's work, a collection that began before the Addison even opened its doors. Thomas Cochrane, the Addison's founder, purchased the West Wind, on view right upstairs, in 1927, donating the work the following year in honor of the 150th anniversary of Phillips Academy. And that was one of 58 paintings that would form the nucleus of what would become the Addison's founding collection. Cochrane had purchased 3 additional significant oils, most notably 8 Bells, which is on view at the Met, not upstairs, unfortunately, for which he paid some $68,000 in 1930, then the highest price paid for an American painting. And a significant group of watercolors were also part of the collection by the time the gallery opened its doors to the public in May of 1931. And over the last 90 years, the collection has been greatly enriched and has grown from one example of Homer's work in 1928 to over 130 today. Considering how inextricably linked the Addison is to Winslow Homer, we are particularly honored to be able to have Bill, one of the leading scholars in the field of Winslow Homer studies, join us today. Bill is the author of the recently published Winslow Homer American Passage, which the Washington Post called an exemplary biography. Randall Fuller of the Wall Street Journal noted that the book is, quote unquote, certain to be definitive, observing that Cross, quote, Cross has a special talent for discerning details most of us overlook, and he provides a rich commentary on Homer's technique, his influences, and even occasional submerged biographical reference, which the painter rarely allowed himself to convey. The biographer's close attention is worthy of the subject, those quotes. Bill also curated Homer at the Beach, a marine painter's journey, 1869 to 1880, a nationally recognized 2019 exhibition at the Cape Ann Museum, I'm sure many of you attended, that revealed Homer's formation as a marine artist. The Addison proudly lent our glorious 1880 watercolor Sunset at Gloucester, which is also on right upstairs, along with a rare ceramic tile decorated by Homer to this important exhibition. And in addition to his work on Winslow Homer, Bill is a consultant to art and history museums and serves as chairman of the advisory board of the Yale Center for Faith and Culture. He is a graduate of Yale College, magna cum laude, and of the Harvard Business School. Bill will take questions from our in-person and virtual audiences, and for our virtual audiences, please use the Q&A box to submit your questions. We have someone monitoring who will feed questions to Bill later on. We also have copies of Winslow Homer American Passage for sale to my left, and at the end of the talk, Bill has graciously agreed to sign copies as well. And finally, I'll note that the talk is being recorded and will be available on the Addison's website and YouTube page next week. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Bill Cross.
Thanks, Gordon. And thanks also to Allie and Jamie and the whole team here at this very special place. And thanks also to all of you for coming tonight. Several of you have told me in the past how much you love the watercolors and oil paintings, which were the focus of the Cape Ann Museum 2019 exhibition. The captivating work of that period of 11 years, during which Winslow Homer was formed as a marine painter, as in this beloved centennial picture, which is was not in our show, I'm sorry to say, but is one of the best loved works of American art. And that work has earned Homer the title of America's favorite painter. The images from his hand are so familiar that even Americans who do not know Homer's name often do know his work. His pictures possess broad and deep appeal, but also tell profound, even troubling truths about our country. None better than in the Gulf Stream, perhaps Homer's greatest painting, which the Metropolitan Museum has placed at the center of its exhibition, Cross Currents, on through July 31st. It is the most ambitious display of Winslow Homer's work in more than a generation, and includes, as Gordon said, 2 spectacular loans from the Addison. The show's luminous watercolors and wonderful oil paintings reflect the role of tension born of conflict in Homer's work, particularly that made in his maturity. Run, do not walk to the Met to see that exhibition. But the best place to see those works is at the Met and not on this screen. So I prefer to spend our time together tonight discussing the subject of the biography released in April, the man who created these monuments of our culture, but about whose life until now we have known so little. In examining his life and his art, I hope that all readers may find resonance with our own lives and times today. Born in Boston to parents immersed in seaborne trade, even as a child, Homer was keenly aware of the economic, social, and moral tensions roiling the country, ranging from the Panic of 1837, a year after his birth, and arguably the first global financial crisis, to accelerating antebellum division over the greatest moral question of the day, slavery. Both his parents were devout Christians, but even in its faith, his family was riven with conflict. His mother and her nuclear family members practiced their faith at Park Street Church, where abolitionists such as William Lloyd Garrison preached a gospel of freedom. Homer's father, by contrast, worshiped at the Bowden Street Church, led by another renowned preacher, Hubbard Winslow. He declared that the best response to slavery was not agitation of the kind that, in his view, Garrison propagated, but a calm and fixed rest of mind. Winslow seemed to believe that robust trade between Boston merchants, many of them sitting in his pews, and well-meaning people in southern ports would somehow lead to a resolution. To say that Garrison disagreed with Winslow is putting it mildly. He described him as a prophet of Baal and effectively an apologist for slavery. Homer's father not only followed Hubbard Winslow's thinking closely, but persuaded his wife to name their newborn son after the pastor, and eventually to join her husband as a member of Winslow's church. The house in which Homer was born in the waning years of the Jackson presidency is long since razed, but was set amid the clutter and stench of a less sanitized North End, adjacent to wharves where Homer's father, an aspiring but failed merchant inventor, sought in vain to find his fortune. The Boston Homer knew as a child was hub to trade with ports across the whole Atlantic world, beginning with the southern states of the US. Most importantly for the Homer family, Mobile, Alabama, where 3 of Homer's 6 paternal uncles settled, 2 of them permanently. Exactly 1 year before Homer's birth, one of those uncles, whom he knew well, was shipwrecked on the Bahamian island of Eleuthera. Years later, in 1885, as Homer first made pencil drawings and watercolors leading toward the Gulf Stream, he and his father would return to the site of that wreck. While his precocious older brother, Charlie, a brilliant chemist, attended Harvard, Winslow and his younger brother, Arthur, studied nearby at Cambridge's Washington Grammar School. Winslow appears to have dropped out to begin work by the summer of 1853, just after he turned 17. His boss was a Boston lithographer, John Henry Buford, whose downtown crossing workshop depended both on plentiful capital for presses and costly limestone blocks and on plentiful labor. Buford hired apprentices for three purposes: to grind down the blocks, to draw appealing designs on them, and then to print the finished products. From sheet music to theater tickets to book illustrations. Two of those three purposes, grinding and printing, required fewer brains than brawn. But the middle one, drawing in crayon on limestone, necessitated both long hours and delicate skill as a draftsman. The slender, reserved Homer had that skill and that dedication and the encouragement of his mother, who was herself a talented amateur painter. About 9 months into his apprenticeship for Buford, another boy arrived in downtown Boston, not far from Homer's birthplace in the North End. This boy was similar in age to Homer, but from Virginia. His name, Anthony Burns, soon became famous, not only in Boston, but across the nation. Burns had escaped slavery by clambering aboard a ship bound for Boston. The man who claimed ownership of him hired a so-called slave catcher who abducted Burns in May of 1854 and delivered him to a waiting US Marshal on the courthouse steps. There, with the approval of Boston's mayor and the President of the United States, the young Burns was tried for violation of the Fugitive Slave Act. The brilliant oratory of his Harvard-trained counsel, Richard Henry Dana, who lived a stone's throw from Homer, failed to persuade the court. In chains, Burns was marched down State Street before the eyes of 50,000 people, 1/3 of Boston's population. The sight and the story were catalytic. Prosperous merchants, even in the textile industry, which depended on Southern cotton, would write, as one did, that we went to bed one night, old-fashioned, conservative, compromise Union Whigs, and waked up stark, mad abolitionists. The naked question emerged. In fulfilling the demand of the man who claimed he owned Burns, had the United States itself inflicted a crime, both against one teenage boy and against the core of its own ideals? Homer leaves us no documents telling us what he thought of Burns's trial or what he said of it to his neighbor, the lawyer Dana, author of 2 Years Before the Mast. But in 1856, as the nation's temperature continued to rise, he composed a lithograph depicting another act of violence, this time on the floor of the United States Senate. There, shortly after Senator Charles Sumner of Massachusetts delivered his speech, "The Crime Against Kansas," Preston Brooks, a congressman from South Carolina, beat him. Across the print's top, Homer ran a quote from Brooklyn's Henry Ward Beecher, whose brother had been pastor to Winslow's mother at Boston's Park Street Church. The symbol of the North is the pen. The symbol of the South is the bludgeon. And then Homer began designing wood engravings for illustrated newspapers, which had been invented just 15 years earlier in London and had now come to America. His designs were distinctive in their rhythmic geometry and suspenseful narrative ambiguity. They included often a subtle nod to matters they seemed on the surface not to address. Here, for example, he depicts a watering cart intended to suppress dust on Boston streets, which just happens to stop outside the windows of the Washington Street shop operated by the renowned abolitionist Charles F. Hovey. Homer's illustrations included intriguing contrasts of light and dark, a wry sense of humor, and a gently surprising touch, such as his inclusion of a well-dressed woman of color within this crowd on Harvard Yard. Making these prints was an even more collaborative process than lithography, as they required not only a skilled draftsman such as Homer, working both on paper and on tightly grained wood blocks, but a second man, a wood engraver, who would complete the work by cutting into the block where Homer had drawn. That process converted the artist's two-dimensional design into a delicate relief. Line was everything. The wood engraver's work was exacting and earned for him about the same amount the draftsman earned. At 23, in 1859, Homer moved to New York, where several of Boston's other draftsmen had also moved, along with their wood engraver colleagues, primarily to work for the Brash brothers who published Harper's Weekly. The newspapers snapped up designs Homer sold to it, especially after the long brewing Civil War broke out, and demand rose for illustrated newspapers that could make sense of the distant but pivotal military action. Homer bore witness to the everyday drama of war, the life of the ordinary foot soldier, not the general. In so doing, he offered complex but accessible compositions that connected the men at the front to lives back home. He opens his narrative for the viewer to imagine the varied experiences of the war and to consider the outcome of the story Homer begins. In News from the War, for example, Homer hangs 7 scenes from telegraph wires, tightly integrating them thematically and visually. The device pays sly homage to the university building on Washington Square, into which Homer himself had just moved, and where wires still dangled from the ceilings on which Samuel Morse had hung them 20 years earlier for his successful experiment inventing the telegraph. Each panel of Homer's illustration tells a story in which news travels by letter, conversation, or even the sound of a bugle. In just one panel does the word move through the printed page, whose speedy arrival accentuates the urgency of news telling. As always, Homer starts with particularity of newspaper brand and of place, one he imagined but had never seen. 3 pairs of figures appear on a street corner in Richmond, the capital of the Confederacy. One of the 6 is a spy for the North. Which one? The affluent white woman with her faithful hound? One of the wounded federal officers out for air from his prison on Tobacco Row? A well-dressed gentleman seen from the back, receding quietly? Or the black woman with a towering basket on her head? Decide for yourself who is the source of news from Richmond to the North. Homer structures a quiet drama for the viewer to enter the story he opens. Ever observing, he invites his own observers to share his tale, to interrogate and complete it. He could sell a design such as News from the War for about $100, the equivalent of $2,700 today. In those days, the value of an oil painting like this was similar, but Homer aspired to become, excuse me, Homer aspired to become not just an illustrator, he wanted to be a painter. And for that, he needed to paint. With his success designing illustrations of life in camp, he turned naturally to that same subject in his first canvases. Rarely seen, this privately held picture is a good example of his sense of humor, as a pair of hungry federal soldiers seek to supplement their army rations with, as Homer's title suggests, the last goose at Yorktown. The barn with its teetering barrel-like water cistern reflects both his attention to detail that appears in photographs of the site and his eye for an element which repeats the form of the barrel in the foreground. He exhibited it with another picture, also of life in camp, whose title he chose with considerable care, Home, Sweet Home. A man of few words, Homer's titles were often as multivalent as his pictures. The subject of home permeated the Civil War for all those who had a stake in it. The enslaved who had no home, the Confederates who believed that only through secession could they retain their home, and the federal troops who fought ultimately for a larger mission, a reimagined home, an America anointed by God for his purposes. Homer's principal sponsor in the Federal Army was his older brother's longtime friend, Francis Channing Barlow, a Harvard graduate who entered the Army as a private, was badly wounded twice, and ultimately became a general despite his youthful and casual appearance. Its characteristic checked best. When, after the war, Homer painted the picture for which, over the following decade, he was most acclaimed, he placed Barlow in it as an archetype of the cool federal officer at odds with the three ragged Confederate prisoners. But the boy general at right is not at the center of the scarred battlefield of Petersburg, Virginia. Instead, with geometric precision, a dashing red-headed Southerner appears, wearing his faith on his sleeve, if you look carefully, and with his jacket and trousers slightly unbuttoned. Why and how Homer centers his picture here is a matter of inference. Decide when you read the book whether you agree with my inference. This picture is an invitation to look longer, broader, and deeper. Let it ask you questions, even and especially those that make you uncomfortable. Homer often deployed pairs of figures in his pictures, and sometimes pairs of pictures, pendants. He painted a pendant to prisoners, the same size and asking some of the same questions in a different way. The setting of the brush arrow is another field, but without evidence of its history or indeed its location. He depicts two barefoot boys, too young to have fought in the war. Perhaps brothers, they labor in the field because their father, dead or injured, cannot. They anticipate a future they cannot see, but for which they prepare. The brush arrow's subtlety denied the possibility of the jingoistic interpretation prisoners permitted, yet it speaks powerfully of the charged, layered emotions of the country: sorrow, hope, longing, and lingering doubt. The war's end and Homer's success as an illustrator allowed him at last to travel to England and France. He would have agreed heartily with his exact contemporary, Samuel Clemens, who wrote that travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness, and many of our people need it sorely on these accounts. Broad, wholesome, charitable views of men and things cannot be acquired by vegetating in one little corner of the earth all one's lifetime. In Europe, Homer saw the work of painters his own generation, such as Manet, here painting an American Civil War battle waged in waters off the French coast, and the work of other European painters, living and dead, Turner, Constable, and Courbet, and Millet, here with his iconic gleaners. Millet's inspiration is especially evident in the work Homer made in the rich flat fields north of Paris. Upon his return to the US, Homer began the work for which he is best known, One of the ironies of his career is that before the late 1860s, this artist, now so closely associated with marine painting, had never made one. At 33, he exhibited his first oil of the sea, which he called Manchester Coast. The critics hated it, one writing that the most noticeable point appears to be the dashing of the ocean spray above the rocks, but as indicated by Mr. Homer, it resembles the work of a boy who has dashed a spitball upon a newly papered wall. The critic was exposing his ample ignorance of Japanese prints, about which Homer had already learned much from his friend John Lafarge, and which would soon elicit wide American admiration. Both his painting and a Lafarge picture completed a year earlier include typically Japanese pictorial techniques, such as a high horizon line, a contrast between the distant view and the exacting description of the foreground, and a slightly asymmetrical, vertigo-inducing composition. His market was not ready to accept such a daring, tightly framed picture, whose title was elusive, not descriptive. These granite boulders could be anywhere along the coast. In one of the rare cases in which Homer revealed anything about how he composed his pictures, he said that when I have selected the thing carefully, I paint it exactly as it appears. That is, Homer considered his context deliberately, constructed his frame as precisely as he set the objects within it, and then, and only then, expressed what he observed. Another example is this picture, which he composed in such a way that he would exclude the derelict warehouse, which, if he had framed his picture in a more conventional way, would have been visible on the right. Within the frame that Homer set, he painted with exactitude, not the cartographic reality that painters such as Fitzhenry Lane had painted, but the truthful appearance to him. Homer had to balance his instinct to innovate with his commercial reality, inasmuch as he painted for money and needed to. Despite the failure of that first marine work, which he never showed again, Homer continued to paint marine scenes. He set his eye on Manchester's best recognized feature then and now, Singing Beach. He began with a plein air panel depicting the beach's then still completely undeveloped East End. But the year following his work on that panel, a Philadelphia industrialist built a new house right in the middle of his vista, of Homer's vista. The final canvas was true to Homer's conception, but required the solution of placing his tallest figure just where she would block the view of the offending house. The son of, sorry, I've got a little bit of things out of order, forgive me. The son of one inventor and the brother of another, more successful inventor, Homer was intrigued with the emerging science of seeing, from optical physics to ophthalmology to photography. As this picture indicates, it's based on his time staying with a painter friend in Palinville, New York. We can pinpoint the details of his context by, among other threads, a stereograph, which survives in a Catskills library. The close comparison of Homer's painting with the stereograph leaves little doubt that Homer's production of the canvas in his New York studio depended not only on the abundant field sketches he made, now mostly lost, but on this photograph made not by him, but by an entrepreneur who sold souvenirs to tourists. Other evidence of Homer's use of photography in his creation of fine art may yet emerge, but this is the first. Homer and other New York painters operated within a seasonal pattern for each year. For example, traveling in the late spring and summer to the Catskills, where his field sketches focused on children, often in or near their one-room schoolhouses. From these, Homer created a series of oil paintings, such as Snap the Whip, and the Addison's country school. Once he returned in the fall to his New York studio, Homer could sell his illustrations year-round, and this one is related to the Addison's oil painting, The Noon Recess. But the paintings he needed to sell against deadlines the art market set for him. Each year, the first 4 months were exhibition season, and therefore also the season for auctions at which he also sold his work. The year before he completed this illustration, Homer moved to the 10th Street studio building, a cultural hothouse where he lived and worked for 8 years until the spring of 1880. For most of each year, Homer was an urban citizen, well aware of, for example, the conditions in which his most vulnerable neighbors lived, among whom were surely some whose own wartime experiences had shattered them for the rest of their lives. Urban life threw Homer into vigorous engagement with a broad swath of New Yorkers, including the circle of architects, critics, and others in the arts who, with Homer, formed the Tile Club. He and 11 other members drank, smoked, gossiped, and as time allowed, also painted handmade Spanish tiles, occasionally throwing them at one another in frustration. Even after quitting the Tile Club, after about 2 years, on at least one occasion, Homer painted a smaller ceramic piece, likely as a wedding gift for his friend Thomas Sturgis, and it is in the Addison's collection. Another more formal club mattered much to Homer as the hub of his social and commercial life. For 45 years, from his election to membership in 1865 to his death in 1910, the Century Association was Homer's primary and indispensable source of companionship and counsel, both artistic counsel and commercial counsel. His many friends there included writers, editors, fellow artists, and financiers. In 1873, surely encouraged by others at the Century and the 10th Street studio building, he journeyed to Gloucester, Massachusetts, near the site of his first exhibited marine painting, Manchester Coast. By summer's end, Homer had produced enough work in a medium just then winning new respect, watercolor, that he was willing to display 10 sheets, albeit with such hesitation that he gave none of them titles or prices. Homer adhered to a consistent approach for the 25 watercolors which survived from that visit to Gloucester in the summer of 1873. All focus on children at play, but not at leisure, as they prepare for the maritime work that awaits them. Each of the sheets is of similar size and appears to come from the same block of off-white wove paper. Homer completed his work in a horizontal format on all but 2 of the 25 sheets. This suite of Homer's first exhibited watercolors was composed, like his wood engravings, of stark geometric shapes. Also, like his illustrations, the sheets embed a narrative ambiguity that draws his viewers into the stories Homer has begun, inviting their completion in the eyes and minds of those to whom he appeals. That ambiguity lies atop an undercurrent of fear and foreboding. Homer's visit coincided with a catastrophic gale which swept up the Atlantic to assault the town and its people with unsparing, merciless force, decimating the commercial fishing fleet upon which Gloucester depended for more than 90% of its economy. Then, as now, the livelihood of fishermen depended on their taking mortal risk. Many of the watercolors focus, like this one, on the act of seeing, as Homer's models explore the world around them, including that part of the world which is submerged and warrants closer viewing, to which he invites us also. As they gaze into the shallows, these boys do not see what we see, a schooner destined for the rich but dangerous fishing grounds of George's Bank, the gaping maws of the wharf sheds beyond, and the scaffold-like derricks to the right. Some of Homer's early watercolors reflect his affinity with Black children. This instance, one of many, of figures paired in contrast, is generally dated a year or two after that summer of 1873. It is noteworthy that Homer marked the centennial not only with Breezing Up, but with a pair of pictures depicting Black children, some of them born after emancipation, as well as, in this case, a grandmotherly figure. Homer's younger characters this Sunday morning not only are at worship, but also are learning how to read. His older model looks out of the picture frame and into a complementary picture, which Homer sets in the same space and includes an evidently unwelcome character, the former mistress of the plantation on which Homer's Black figures still live. His diptych-like pair, in which sentiment and tension coexist, is a classic example of Homer leading us into a purposefully open-ended drama. Homer also empathized with indigenous women, men, and children, such as those around Lake St. John in Quebec. He saw himself in them, perhaps, as outsiders making their way on soil and water they cherished, and which their ancestors had known for centuries. Homer's outstanding talents as a painter in watercolor led him to create not only true masterpieces of American art, but among the greatest such works ever made anywhere in the world. They include a series of dramatic sunsets, including, of course, the Addisons, that he painted on a return trip to Gloucester in the summer of 1880, when he lived with the lighthouse keeper and his family on 10-Pound Island in the middle of the harbor, immersed in the magical meeting of land, sea, and sky. The children who appear in these later Gloucester watercolors are at one with the rocks and rippled waters across which they navigate. Their curiosity mirrors our own, their joy in summer sun, as natural as the smiles these scenes bring to everyone who sees them today. These children seem utterly untroubled by the woes of the world which hung over the boys and girls Homer painted 7 years earlier. This is upstairs, hanging now. The long, productive summer of 1880 led Homer back to a darker palette and to England, where he spent 20 months in 1881 and 1882, primarily in the North Sea fishing village of Cullercoats near Newcastle, as is this also hanging upstairs, where he focused his eye primarily on stolid, strong women and children. The Addison has several excellent examples from Homer's Cullercoats period, including this wonderful watercolor, which is not on display at the moment, but which has notably, it's a wonderful example of Homer's methodical geometric construction, which reflects the discipline and faith in an underlying order, which Homer developed in his youth and which sustained him throughout his career. While he was in England, Winslow, his brothers, and their parents initiated a major new phase in the Homer family's life, and especially in his. The family bought a large chunk of Prout's Neck, a 150-acre promontory a dozen miles south of Portland, Maine, and Winslow remodeled a stable to become his home and studio. The place captivated him. His first years at Prout's were ones of staggering productivity. Homer focused for the first time in his paintings on the innate longing of all people for salvation, and on a theme that would engage him for another 2 decades of mid-ocean wreck and rescue, due in part perhaps to stories he heard on the deck of the Cunard steamship Parthia on his way to England. That theme of mid-ocean wreck and rescue sustained him for another 20 years, leading both to his remarkable oil, The Signal of Distress, which is the star of the Met exhibition, and to the very last watercolor he ever exhibited, which is also in the show. As mortal themes became central to his work, he created the famous contrasting pendants of the herring net and the fog warning, in which he sets a fruitful harvest of small fish that a pair of men catch close to shore against an uncertain outcome, as a solitary figure pursues large fish far out at sea at potential loss to his own life. A third painting, made the year after these two, is distinct from them, but related. It is a meditation on a question that on its face is simple. Where are we? A tiny error in measurement, such as 4 seconds on the ship's clock, would translate to the miscalculation of the vessel's position by 1 nautical mile, or enough error in a storm to risk its very existence. Actionable intelligence bears mortal consequence. With his characteristic respect for both science and art, Homer depicts a pair of mariners deploying their octants to measure both latitude and longitude at local noon. To do so, they need a third man who is unseen but essential. Homer is that man who commands his viewer to stand in his shoes. As over the roaring waves, these 2 men we see shout their observations of the height and angle of the sun, the third man watches for the pivotal, particular moment. That is when the sun is at its highest above the horizon. The third man not only inscribes these numbers, but draws them in linear form on graph paper. It is he, the unseen draftsman, who makes comprehensive sense of the visual evidence. By head and hand, he leads his partners in order that together the 3 may ascertain the single answer to their shared fundamental question. Homer returned to Gloucester in the summer of 1885 and had perhaps already begun to work on 8 bells. But another factor might have been that Prout's neck was especially noisy just then. His 9-year-old nephew, Arthur, was one agent for the eradication of quiet. But another was the construction project directly across the street from his home and studio, amid, as he wrote, much hammering. St. James Church is a pillar of the Prout's Neck community today, and Homer's father, then recently widowed, was one of the founders. But Winslow himself, the son of 2 devout Christians, is not documented ever to have worshiped there, or indeed anywhere else. He wrote his brother's wife that, quote, the church is of great value to the property, and doubtless as a music enthusiast, loved the sounds blowing out the church windows and across the street. That said, his highly observant approach to all aspects of life had one exception: his formal religious practice. A slump followed Homer's period of intense productivity in the mid-1880s. Homer's slump became a depression. The pivot was his return in 1889 to the Adirondack Mountains of upstate New York, where he had spent 3 months in 1870 and then visited again in 1874. When he made this, which is one of only 6 Adirondack watercolors made in this early period and belongs to the Addison. And then in 1877, he was inspired to depict a landscape in which another pair of figures appear. striking a contrast by age, height, and personality, and alluding perhaps to polarities in American identity. Among Homer's happiest memories were of fishing, as he documented in the 70s, at the clearing, a one-time Adirondack farm, now a rustic club, where Homer found both congenial companionship and conviction that the words of his favorite author, an Anglo-Scots physician, were true. Everything bears the mark of order, impressed upon it by the almighty hand. Homer's newfound delight in God's created world in which he immersed himself was as tangible as the creatures he painted. Homer sees in awe the working out of an invisible but benevolent design. He probably shared with Pastor William Henry Harrison Murray the contrarian view that in the Adirondacks, with such symbols and manifestations of God around, you need not go to the lettered page to learn of him. The Bible, with its print and paper, is a hindrance rather than a help. The hound is perfectly balanced on a log which could twist and toss him into the stream, but doesn't. Homer catches all of it in its mysterious, geometrically measured order. The autumn colors, the dog and the air, he and Homer too breathe, as does the prey the dog sees, but we cannot. Homer relishes the suspense of the moment and its extreme brevity for the characters in his drama. His sense of wonder did not mean that he was blind to vulnerability and death, but rather that he believed in the sovereign hand of God, that this side of heaven requires that we see through a glass darkly, in faith that one day we may see face to face. So in Homer's largest painting, Fox Hunt, it is not the ravenous crows with which he empathizes, but the tired old fox, as, like the fox, his own signature sinks into the snow. And this too is working out of an order that is observed and attended by the Almighty who made all creatures. Homer presents a tragedy for us, but he does not give away its ending. And he too cares about all that he, the human creator, has brought to life. This painting was one of several that before his 60th birthday had won Homer a reputation for work whose visual significance to our culture is comparable to the contributions that Walt Whitman, Emily Dickinson, and Mark Twain made to our literature. Despite the recognition his work received, Homer's life changed little. He continued to live in the modest former stable he had remodeled, and to find meaning and delight in the ever-changing vistas around him on the Maine coast. It took many days of careful observation to get this, Homer wrote about one of his pictures, with a high sea and tide just right. He also continued to go to the North Woods Club in the Adirondacks, a total of 19 times over 21 years, with his last visit just weeks before he died. The Addison has the honor of owning not only one of Homer's earliest known Adirondack watercolors, but also the very last one, indeed the only one he created after 1900. He also made regular visits to Lake St. John, the home of the Montagnais people, as he called them, known as Anew today, and to the Saguenay River into which the lake drained. He found joy there in the wild currents of the gorge and in the sight of the colossal landlocked salmon for which he fished, as a surreal quality colored his expressions of joy and wonder. And no Homer picture is more surreal or more mysterious than Kissing the Moon, among the most evocative works of American art. It ushers us into a dreamlike state Homer has constructed, and which we share with three men at sea in a tiny fishing boat with neither oars nor sail. He imagines an inexplicable gathering beneath the light of a full moon. An indigenous Canadian hunter, his weapons absent or stilled, joins two American fishermen, silent in their sou'westers in this meditational moment. The canvas is an invitation to enter another world, beyond fear, beyond death, a world of rapture in beauty and awe. Over all Homer's life, in his close observation, his skillful hand, idiosyncratic faith, and tender heart for the breadth of humanity and all other creatures he encountered, Homer practiced the principles he learned in his youth. He wrote that the life that I have chosen gives me full hours of enjoyment for the balance of my life. The sun will not rise or set without my notice and thanks. On behalf of myself and the Addison and this gentleman, thank you for coming. Thank you for your patience with my hoarse voice. Are there questions? Maybe starting here, and I will repeat them for the benefit of the Zoom participants.
We actually have one from the Zoom already. We can
Great.
start with.
Okay.
So I'll have you repeat it because I don't know if they can hear me.
Right.
Question is, why does Homer almost always hide the faces of his subject?
Great question. Why does Homer seem almost always to hide the faces of his subjects? So the answer is not what I have been told repeatedly it is. And that is, the man couldn't draw faces or hands. He was a very skilled draftsman. And there are a number of cases in which he draws faces with great detail. And so it wasn't that he lacked skill, but he knew that by creating figures who were, as his critics often called them, sketchy, he would draw us in deeper. It's also why, unlike the more finished pictures of his peers, his pictures do appear sketchy, as the critics often said, as if they're not quite finished, that there are layers of ambiguity that he has built in that draw us in deeper. So the ambiguity in the narrative of Kissing the Moon is akin perhaps to the fact that the one figure in the West Wind, which is hung upstairs, is seen from the back. We know who the model was because she had a characteristic tam o' shanter that she wore on Prout's neck, and she took credit for being the model after the fact. But Homer gives us no indication of what her face looked like. And each of us can better imagine standing where she stands in the West Wind because we don't see her face. And we also, we know that she's a woman, but both men and women can identify with her because of that. I hope that makes sense. Yes.
How do you feel his early time in lithography and printing influenced the way he saw and organized value drawing? How do you feel that supported him as a painter later?
So I believe that to the last day of his life in September 1910, Homer was grounded in narrative. and that his years making a living as he had to, he was born poor. His years making a living as an illustrator, initially as a lithographic assistant, really an apprentice, and then as somebody who made wood engraved illustrations that he had to sell every time to editors that had the choice to turn them down. That skill in developing a narrative that would be compelling enough to be sold and to convey a story that his viewers would want to finish in their own heads, that was so central for Homer's whole life as not just an illustrator, but a painter. So when we see even the work he made at Prout's Neck in the last decade of his life, in which no figures appear, there is a narrative, and the narrative is of capturing the particulars of that moment, knowing that it will be very evanescent, and that there is in the day, in the tide, in the season, in the behavior of the moon, there is a story that is we glimpse only through a glass darkly. It's a story that we didn't write, but within which we live. And it's a story of goodness and greatness. And if we choose to see it this way, joy and beauty. So that grounding in narrative, I think, ultimately gave him a sense of the benevolence of the larger narrative, the meta narrative, within which each of us 7 billion humans are little threads in a big tapestry. Is that okay as an answer to that one? Yes. Thank you.
Did you ever use photography as a basis for his work?
So the only example we've been able to find of his using photography as a basis for Winslow Homer's fine art is the example that I showed you of the tourist stereograph, which Homer must have used as a part of his process for making the old mill. And the fact that that is so persuasive suggests that there must be others out there, other examples. This book was written at a rapid pace, and it was written in the middle of a pandemic. And so there were a lot of things that if I had 10 years and no pandemic to wrestle with, I might have been able to turn out, but as my editor said, it's about the art of the possible. So I am hopeful that there will be a lot of research done in the future that builds on the work that I've done, and that others will find lots of great breakthroughs on photography and its relationship with Homer. Frank Goodyear at Bowdoin, who's one of the directors of the museum, is a photography scholar and did a show in 2018 on Homer and photography. And one of the things that he was able to do in that show, because at that point, the stereograph that I showed had not been identified. One of the things that he did was draw the connections between Homer's wood engravings and photographs, and that's very well documented. In fact, some of the captions on Homer's wood engravings say from a portrait by Matthew Brady, for example. Does that help? Yeah, I hope I hope that others will pick up this mantle. One of the things I found really fascinating is that the popular culture, which was the first decades of American photography, is getting very little attention from graduate students and faculty in America's colleges and universities. And it's just a treasure trove. But there is a giant sucking sound in the post-war and in contemporary art market that seems to be drawing people away from things like 19th century American photography.
One last question from you, from our virtual audience.
Oh, okay. Can we
Yeah.
take two?
Yeah, oh, yeah, absolutely.
Present first.
Okay.
And horse too, the hour was amazing. There was a name that you mentioned before, Ed Beecher.
Yes.
I was wondering if that was in relation to Harriet Beecher's story.
Yes, absolutely. Henry Ward Beecher, who gave the quote on the top of the lithograph of the beating of Charles Sumner on the floor of the Senate, was brother to Harriet Beecher Stowe. And they were both children of a man named Lyman Beecher, who was pastor of the church I mentioned, the Bowden Street Church, prior to Hubbard Winslow coming along. And Lyman Beecher was much more committed to abolitionism, as was Henry Ward Beecher, and of course Harriet Beecher Stowe, than was this man Hubbard Winslow, who Garrison called Prophet of Baal. And it was a big family with a lot of wonderfully creative people. And one of the things that Henry Ward Beecher, as pastor of the Pilgrim Baptist Church in Brooklyn, did was he acted as a patron of the arts. And he was not just a dynamic preacher. He really believed in encouraging artists. And so as an example, there's this wonderful little known Boston watercolorist, Ellen Robbins, who named Henry Ward Beecher, Harriet Beecher Stowe's brother, as the single most important influence on her life as a consistent and steady and strong patron for her. So there are lots of people that I got to know through this project beyond Winslow, many of whom are intriguing, have stories of their own that are inspiring. So last question comes from the cloud.
All right. So the question is, many of Homer's paintings have a flash of red. Was this intentional, and is it significant?
So the question is, many of Homer's paintings have a well-chosen dose of red. Intentional, significant, so intentional and so significant that Gordon and I were just talking about it in the gallery. Look at the West Wind, which has a wonderful use of red in a canvas that is very disciplined in its color scheme. Homer had a particular affinity for a certain kind of red that does appear repeatedly. I cannot claim that I can connect that red as George Inness did to theological ideas from the Swedenborgianism. Homer wasn't giving any secrets away about his views on the power of certain colors. I wish, like Inness, he gave us some of those clues, but it is striking that he chose that same red in a number of cases for his signature and for certain accents. So as an example, I hope many of you, if you've not seen the show in New York, will, And if you go to the Met to see the show before it closes July 31st, look carefully at the brush harrow, which has, it's the only case I know where Homer does this. He signs it Homer NY. And he signs it in the same red that appears on a dot on the opposite corner, the upper right corner. There's this tiny flash of red, totally unexplained. But the fact that he is signing it that way and has it there, and then the red shows up in a couple of places on the brush harrow itself, this piece of agricultural equipment, as the sun flashes on it, it's fantastic. He understood color harmony, and he knew that choosing certain colors to draw us more deeply into the painting would really work. And both the West Wind, which is a very subtle example you can see upstairs, and the brush harrow are great examples. So thank you so much for coming, and I am happy to sign